Alrighty guys, we got another deck profile. Birds are chirping. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And with that being said, let's get into it. Shout out to the wise guys. The original bird. Shout out to the owl. I wanted to cover this before I really dove into it. Time tiering, I keep wanting to call it rendering like it was originally called. The card is a very, very good card. I'm going to make another profile. However, it's come up short a lot in testing and locals. Like all the locals I was playing it in, I was trying to go undefeated with it, and I kept going like X1, and it was like the engine bricking on itself. If you are going to plan to play 2, that's why I have 2 in the sleeve. I would recommend 2 is the correct number. It's because you don't want to keep seeing this card. You don't care if your opponent like negates 1, you can just activate another one. And then the ability to either normal twice, the ability to draw 2 cards every draw phase, kind of like Spellbook Tower. And then just being able to banish out of your hand and just lock all of your opponent's monster effects. It's a very, very strong effect. However, it's kind of win more-ish in this deck. However, the normals can stack, unlike some of the other decks. I think Monarchs, the ruling is a little bit strange. But with that being said, let's get into this profile and why we're playing these cards, because I feel like this is a very strong version, and with a few tweaks here and there going to call along with your locals, you'll definitely see some improvements you can make. And I feel like it always is kind of a sliding scale with deck profiles. Anyways, with the cards, we got a double M-Pin. I was playing 3, but it's just too bricky. I wanted to play 5 tributes. I'm only playing 4 right now. It's double M-Pin, 1 Mega Ryza, and 1 Apex Avian. I like Apex Avian a little bit more right now, simply over the owl, because there's not as much only cast here. Therefore, when you're running into more branded, I want negate most of the time. Whether branded and losses on the field, okay, well that kind of makes Apex Avian not as good against that matchup. However, Apex Avian before a loss is on the field is pretty decent. And if you can stop the loss from sticking to the board, maybe that'll work for you if you can keep the counter trap from banishing. You know how branded plays, guys. It's kind of in a simplified game state. Apex Avian is just really, really strong. Most of the time, though, on their turn, I want to hit them with a Ryza. And a majority of the time, I'll go for the Apex first until I see them place a bunch of cards. So if their deck takes a lot of setup, like let's say Plunder Patrol or something like that, and they haven't really done anything to you, that's where Ryza comes in. So that's always a breakdown for me. These are the 4 tributes I'm playing. You could play some of the other ones. The Earthbound Immortal is kind of the interesting one, but with its own deck coming out, I just, shout out to that video. We got that coming soon. With the hand traps, we got Dimensional Shifter. This is a shifter or die kind of format, which is why I wanted to take a split second to talk about Dimensional Fissure. With Dimensional Fissure, guys, you basically have a 4th dimensional shifter, or 5th or a 6th if you really want to go that deep in. But the reason why I'm really mentioning Dimensional Shifter and not doing a tech video, because, the numbers are kind of weird with those. What I wanted to point out is that Dimensional Fissure, just like Dimension Shifter, kind of counters all of their in-hand needs to go to grave hand traps like Droll and Lockbird, etc., etc. So therefore, Shifter is really, really strong with so many people playing Ghost Ogre, etc., etc. You get where I'm coming from in playing the 3 Shifter and putting it right back in the deck where it was. There's less cast here, and there's more variety of decks like, let's say, Medanium, Manadome, however you say it. So Shifter just comes right back into the fray, and it's really, really clean. Rounding out the hand traps, I'm playing 2 Ash. I didn't want to keep drawing the card. I hate drawing hand traps in this deck repeatedly, and you definitely draw the shifters already. I don't want to keep drawing the Ash, but I definitely wanted to have some in there for just a variety of matchups, and obviously to take out Branded Fusion, but I didn't want to overdraw it, because if they like called by it or something, I just don't want to have a dead card in my hand. And it definitely is a hand trap format, so everybody has counters to everything, if you get where I'm coming from. As far as the birds, the baby birds, the triple Rabina doesn't really change. It's not going to change. I don't know why you'd point that out. Triple Eaglin's not going to change. You can mess around with these and play more than these. If you want to play the field spell and just never brick, play more of these. But for me, I like the ratio just as I have it, and I feel like it's just correct. And there's not really a whole lot you can adjust to unless the format gets a little bit more grindy. Then you bump up a Toucan, or if you need to get to a new bird, if they ever bring out a new bird, you'll probably bump Toucan back up as well, because you want to see that bird probably more often. Let's hope like Floowandereeze and Pigeon or something like that. Who knows? Triple map. Map is self-explanatory how strong it is. Activating its effect gives you the additional normal before you ever actually use your regular normal, and you're already going to chain a bunch of normals together once they start to resolve. But map is the way to chain block the Ash Blossom that you always have to deal with. You guys already know that. However, there are many other applications where being able to activate this card in unison with the Toucan, if you didn't know, obviously can allow you to get to almost any Floowandereeze card in your deck by banishing it off of this. It doesn't always have to be the monster. It can be a card, like let's say the Trap, like let's say Continuous Winds, which you'll see in a second. So obviously, if you ever want to bump them up, I highly recommend Toucan being the one that you do bump up, because 3, unless it's a graveyard format, just isn't quite the same. Triple Extravagance in this build. Yes, play Prosperity, or you can like change some cards here and there and just play 3 Extravagance, 3 Prosperity, and 3 of the dualities. But for me, I like Extravagance. I like having an extra card in my hand. I like having the dualities at 3. I just rather have the redundancy happen. You know, it is what it is with that. And they're always going to want to stop what you're doing because, well, Floowandereeze can just get going. So a card like Talents is in my deck. However, it's not necessary, and it could easily be a card like Call by the Grave instead to kind of cut them off at the pass to a certain hand trap that you may lose to. But this for me has been working very, very well because it also is a pseudo change of heart, which definitely comes into play as well. As far as rounding out some of the one-ofs, the Thrust as well. Obviously, I try to go first with this deck, but obviously you're not always going to win a dice roll, and I feel like you just want to take the risk of drawing some of these weird cards going first. To shout out to the terraforming, but sometimes you're just gonna have to take the opportunity to, hey, if I draw a Dark Ruler going first, I'm gonna deal with it. Dark Ruler isn't the best card to break boards just because people are making like invulnerable Barons and crazy stuff like that, and definitely you guys have read cards like Chaos Angel, and they're making stuff untouchable and unaffected, and it's just a big pain in the butt. But with Dark Ruler, you still have a really, really strong blanket effect across a lot of different variety of decks, and I still feel like it's a good choice to have in the current metagame. Double Continuous Winds. I love tributing off people's stuff. It's kind of a beautiful thing. I'm sure you guys have also dealt with the effect to put cards back on the bottom like Cosmo Town, but just being able to tribute off your opponent's cards continuously, I felt like you always wanted to have 2, and you just want to have targets to keep going into the deck and make your opponent react to a very, very strong card, and this is a very strong card. Feather Duster to round out the cards that will be able to be grabbed off of Thrust because, well, I just don't want to die to that back row deck that hard, and you're going to also have to deal with hand traps, so you just want to have at least one answer that you can say, man, I hope I draw it in a game 1 at least. I usually play triple of the Floowandereeze and wins, and this is a card I like myself. I'm playing Enemy Controller as the 3rd, so that I won't brick on these, and then just have a card that can also be very, very strong going 2nd. It's bad going 1st, but it's strong going 2nd, and it can push right through a board, help you to take out an opponent's monster that you might not have had an easy time with, and then be able to go from there. Like I've had a Pegasus on the field, you normal a card, it goes to activate its effect, and then shift to the defense, you chain Enemy Controller, take it completely off the field, take the Pegasus. Now, obviously, you're going to have a map or something in unison with that, but definitely having a card like Enemy Controller can help you in insane situations. And of course, the other 2 are for time. As far as some other cards that you can grab off of Thrust, this is what has been working for me. I've been testing some of the other builds and testing this build and messing around with this build, and it's either you play as many pots as you can, like that YCS build from a long time ago, or you just go into some Thrust targets, and then if they activate any hand traps, which everybody is in some kind of way, and let's say you open a wind monster, a wind wing beast, which is very easy in this deck, you just crack them with this. Or if they've activated a hand trap off of your Impin Search, you can just grab the continuous spell instead of the trap card and then thrust into the trap card and set it anyway. So all very, very strong applications that I feel like are very, very key to mention, but mentioning as quick as I can. As far as, shout out to Wise guys. As far as the side deck, I feel like double Nib. Nib again conflicts with the deck, just like Droll Lock kind of conflicts with you putting Shifter back in your deck. But Nib is very, very strong against those random decks like Addict. I hate decks like that where they'll go up as people take their eyes off of them, they'll go up and get stronger. And, you know, if you can hopefully cut their deck off before they get to pardon me, and if they get to a Baron before the 5th summon, then, you know, you may want to find a better card than this. If you're seeing where lines of play just aren't respecting this card, that's where you keep this card in. So it can be very, very easily another card, but I really like Nib. Right now, it's just not always going to catch the best players because they usually have it well thought out what they're going to do to deal with Nib. Drolling Lock to stop all the searching. I didn't want to main it just because I didn't want the conflict with Shifter to be every single round. If I were to play it in a big event, which y'all know I love Floowandereeze. The Change of Heart is one of the additional thrust targets. It's just too good when you're going second. Just like Enemy Controller is too good going second, which is why we play 2 of those to kind of go with the control aspect of the deck. And then obviously kind of going through the rest of the side, I have 1 Ash just to round out the 3rd Ash. If you're going specifically against branded, okay, take them out. A lot of times I side Ashes out and put specific stuff in for specific matchups, which is why I just like having the card in my deck. Obviously another Featherstorm, you're going to need those, as many of those as you can, but I don't want to play 3 because you will brick on those, and I just want to be able to play the deck first and then rely on this second. If you just draw the extra one, it's just, hey, the math is nice on it. But drawing 3 can be kind of bad sometimes because you'll draw a bunch of the traps or something crazy like that. Dreaming Town, a second Dreaming Town to just continuously search through your deck and just keep, if the longer a deck can grind with you, the more you want to put in a card like this going first. I almost sided in every time going first just because I can search 1, I can thrust 1, set 1, you know, there's just a lot of application you can do. And then obviously to take out back row, you got to take them out in the best way possible. Double Evenly and double Cyclone, obviously because it also covers Runic Fountain. The extra deck, as you know, you got to have something like Underworld Goddess, but as far as the rest of them, it doesn't matter. And with that, I'm out. Shout out to this card. This card is dope. Kind of think about the Dogmatica build, you know, because it can double off on some of these cards, and I can play something like Ultimate Slayer going second. So definitely give it some consideration. Burn some people in time. Attack over them with Juggernaut Lead. We out.